Guys, so in this whole quarantine, distance learning, teaching from home, blah 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 stuff, I thought I would do some poetry for you, and who better than Tupac to work with. So I chose one of my favorite poems of his, The Rose That Grew from Concrete, and I'm trying something new. I am going to try to show you on one screen and you're watching me on another, and we're going to piece things together and hopefully it's going to work. But you know me in technology, so we'll see how it goes. So as you know, with poetry, you're supposed to hear it. I'm going to read it aloud to you. And typically, if we were in the actual classroom, I'd have a couple of you read it to me, and we would talk about it, and I'd pose questions, etc., etc. But because I'm doing this from the comforts of my own home, a couple of things are going to happen. One, you'll probably hear my dogs bark. Two, I can't ask you questions because I would get no response. And three, I'm going to kind of go through this at a faster pace than I would if we were in the actual classroom. So, I'm going to read it. I'm going to break it down for you, explain some of the highlights, explain some of the meanings that are usually associated with it, and then wrap up the lesson for you. That's pretty much all it's going to be. But if you are interested in reading more of his poetry, I will link the book for you that you can find like through Amazon or one of the other places. Okay, so it's called, excuse me, The Rose That Grew from Concrete. Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's laws wrong, it learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else even cared. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out to you, oh, and this is so exciting, I get to use my Apple Pencil. So the first thing I'm going to show you is that it's autobiographical. And as you remember, if something's autobiographical, it's the person talking about his or her life. So that should tell you that whatever is in this piece of poetry is talking about Tupac himself. Okay, so the next thing I want to point out to you is in the first line, I circled the letter U. Now, I've told you numerous times, when you write, you should spell everything out in your essays. I don't want you using text lingo. But this was before text lingo, and he used the letter U instead of Y-O-U. We'll talk about why he did that in a minute. He also used the number 2 instead of T-O, and he used it here also. Another instance. Now, when you see his name, it's going to appear two ways. You're going to see Tupac, sometimes spelled like that, T-U-P-A-C. You're also sometimes going to see the 2, and then P-A-C. Different periods of his life. So one could speculate that when he was writing this is the time when he was going by this version. Could be because he was lazy. Could be because this was a rough draft. Don't really know. But it boils down to something that's called poetic license. Meaning, when you are writing poetry, you can pretty much break the rules and kind of do what you want to. So he was able to craft his skill in the way he wanted to and write, even though I say no in essay writing and formal writing. In poetry, you can do these types of things. Okay, so get that stuff out of the way. Now, let's look at the concept of a rose. Typically, you give roses to people that you care about, right? Valentine's Day, big seller of roses. Great. Rose is usually a pretty flower. And flowers typically grow in places like gardens, flower boxes, obviously florists, right? You don't expect them to grow from a crack in concrete. Okay, so what is he really trying to say there? So I'll let you think about that. So see, it's so weird letting you think about things when I'm here and you're there. You have to think about what concrete is. Concrete is something that you see typically in a city, right? Okay, so if you know anything about Tupac, you knew that he grew up in the city and he lived in a bad part of town. Okay, a crack is something that is a break. Okay, so that's a break. Alright, so we got all these crazy things going on here. So we have a break, we have concrete. Concrete, something that is hard, something that's solid. Okay, thinking about this, keep thinking. Don't want to give out the answer yet. So, the other thing that we need to look at is the fact that he has this phrase where it says, learn to walk without having feet. Okay, hopefully some little bells and whistles are going off in your minds and you're thinking, is that personification? Why, yes it is, it is. It's personification. Why is it personification? Personification. I can't talk and spell at the same time. Why is it personification? Because you are making something that is not human, human-like. So, what is walking without having feet? The rose. I had to make, my cameraman was checking on me, make sure all is well. Okay, so let's look at these first 4 lines of the poem again. Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's laws wrong, it learned to walk without having feet. So if I wanted to look at those 4 lines, and if we were actually in class together, I would say, turn and talk to your partner and discuss what you think those 4 lines are talking about. And hopefully you would understand that lines 1 through 4 are looking at the idea that Tupac is saying that he is the rose. So he is something wonderful. He is something beautiful. He is the rose and is blossoming in a not so good place. Or in other words, the expectations that were put upon him, or what the stereotype expectations that were placed upon him, he's breaking away from those. Okay, now let's look at the next lines, 5 through 8. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else even cared. I think line 5 and 6 are probably some of my favorite lines in this poem. And I'll even highlight those with my highlighter, because he's talking about keeping your dreams. And the last line, when no one else even cared. Despite all the odds, despite everything that's against him, he had a single mom. He was, yes, selling illegal drugs. He was affiliated with gangs. He had all these terrible things going on in his world, but yet he had dreams that he wanted to achieve. And even though it felt like no one else cared, but they did care, but from his perspective, they didn't, or maybe not care in the way he wanted them to care. And who hasn't felt that before, right? Excuse me. He learned to breathe fresh air. Well, what's that supposed to mean? Well, don't we breathe fresh air every single day? Yes, we do. But I think there's another meaning with that fresh air. I think that fresh air is the idea of, how about the desires of our own ways, or the life we want, in other words. He's trying to figure himself out, just like all of us try to figure ourselves out. Unfortunately, his life was cut really short at a young age. and he wasn't able to figure everything out. So when you're looking at this piece of poetry, and remember, I said I was going to do this very quickly. When you're looking at this piece of poetry, he wants anyone who picks this up to understand that despite where you're coming from, you can be whomever, whatever you want to be. And even if you come from a crappy part of town, or you come from a crappy home life or something, you can be successful, and you can't use that as an excuse. So here's the part that some of you don't like to do, and again, if we were sitting in class, you know I'd expect you to do it. The thing that we always need to think about is the theme. And remember my little trick. Theme is the message. Remember how we did that? And I'll draw a little green box around that. Okay, so if you had to tell me one line in a line or a phrase, a sentence, what you thought this piece of poetry, a lesson that this was telling you, you could say that despite all odds, people can rise above problems. Sure, that'd be a good one. There are lots of other ones that we could apply. Don't let your past dictate your future. Any of those things would work. So, here's the deal. This is the first lesson I'm doing like this, and it is May, and I am bored out of my mind not having my classes to see my students every single day. So, if this goes well and we like it, I'll do more of these. Poetry tends to be one of the easier things to do from home because they're short pieces. It's not like a whole book or something. But I could do short stories. I can take some requests if there's some pieces of poetry you want me to look at. If you want me to do some more Tupac, that'd be great. Also could do song lyrics. But keep this in mind. Regardless of what we're doing here, when we get back together in September, you're going to need to be sharp with your ELA skills. So keep reading, keep writing, document what you're doing over this time. Do little videos, write in a journal, do little TikTok videos, whatever it is that's going to keep track of the things that you're doing in this time that you're away from the traditional school setting. And remember that even Tupac could thrive in a situation in which he wasn't expected to thrive. So you can too. All right, guys, until next time, stay good to yourselves and others around you. Just on cue. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.